INS learning. இப்போ நம்ம பார்க்க போகிறது ஹையர் செகண்டரி செகண்ட் இயர் புது சமச்சீர் கல்வி புக். இதோடைய ஹிஸ்ட்ரி பார்ட் தான் பார்க்க போகிறோம். ஸோ ஹிஸ்ட்ரியில் பார்க்கலாம் எத்தனை லெசன் இருக்குன்னு. ஸோ ஹிஸ்ட்ரியில் மொத்தம் 9 லெசன்ஸ் இருக்குது. இது எல்லாமே நான் ஒரு 15 மினிட்ஸ் வீடியோவாக பண்ண போகிறேன். ஸோ ஒரு லெசனும் உங்களுக்கு நான் ரீட் அவுட் பண்ணி காட்ட போகிறேன். வாங்க வீடியோக்குள்ளே போகலாம். Unit 1, Rise of Nationalism in India. Learning objectives: to acquaint ourselves with changes in agrarian conditions and import of British manufactures, ruin Indian handicrafts and artisanal class, periodical outbreak of famines force Indian landless laborers and jobless artisans to emerge, introduction of Western education and birth of national awakening are contributory factors for the rise of nationalism in India. Modern Indian intelligentsia lays the foundation of an Indian National Congress. Early nationalists and their contribution, especially of Nauroji and his drain theory. ஸோ உங்களுக்கு பழைய 12th புக்குக்கும் புது 12th புக்கு இருக்க டிஃப்ரென்ஸ் முதல்ல சொல்கிறேன். ஸோ பழைய 12th புக்கில் பார்த்தீங்கன்னா கவர்னர்ஸ்லேருந்து ஸ்டார்ட் பண்ணியிருப்பாங்க. ஸோ கவர்னர்ஸ்லேருந்து ஸ்டார்ட் பண்ணியிருப்பாங்க. ஆனால் இங்கே பார்த்தீங்கன்னா ஸ்ட்ரெயிட்டாக நேஷ்னலிசம்லேருந்து உங்களுக்கு ஸ்டார்ட் ஆகுது. ஸோ இதுதான் இங்கே டிஃப்ரென்ஸ். அதுவும் இல்லாமல் இதில் ஃபுல்லாக ரொம்ப ப்ரீஃப் பண்ணியிருக்காங்க. உங்களுக்கு ஒன்று ரொம்ப எக்ஸ்பிளைன் பண்ணி சொல்லியிருக்காங்க. ஸோ இதுதான் ரெண்டுத்துக்கும் இருக்க டிஃப்ரென்ஸ். Introduction. The political and economic centralization of India achieved by the British for the better exploitation and control of India inevitably led to the growth and national consciousness and the birth of national movement. The history of nationalism in India begins with the campaigns and struggles for the social reforms in the 19th century, followed by the Western educated Indians' prayers and petitions for the political liberties. With the return of Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi from South Africa in 1915 and his leadership of the Indian nationalist movement in 1990, Indian nationalism entered a mass phase. Prior to Gandhi, prominent leaders like Dadabhai Nauroji, Gopal Krishna Gokhale, Bipin Chandra Pal, Lala Lajpat Rai, Bal Gangadhar Tilak and others took the early initiative to educate the Indians about their national identity and colonial exploitation. In this chapter, while tracing the origin and growth of Indian nationalism, we focus on the contribution of these leaders who are known as the early nationalists. ஸோ நேஷ்னலிசம் ஃபேஸை ரெண்டாக பிரிப்பாங்க, ப்ரீ காந்தியன் எரா அண்ட் போஸ்ட் காந்தியன் எரா அப்படின்னு சொல்லிட்டு. ஸோ ப்ரீ காந்தியன் பற்றி தான் நம்ம இந்த லெசனில் பார்க்க போகிறோம். Socio-economic background. A. Implications of the new land tenures. The British destroyed the traditional basis of Indian land system. In the pre-British days, the land revenue was realized by sharing the actual crop with the cultivators. The British fixed the land revenue in cash without any regard to various contingencies such as failure of crops, fall in prices, and droughts or floods. Moreover, the practice of sale and settlement of debt encouraged moneylenders to advance money to landholders and restoring to every kind of trickery to rob them of their property. There were also two other major implications of the new land settlements introduced by the East India Company. They institutionalized the commodification of land and commercialization of agriculture in India. As mentioned earlier, there was no private property in land in pre-British era. Now, land became commodity that could be transferred either by way of buying and selling or by way of administration taking over land from holders in lieu of default on payment of tax or rent. Land taken over in such cases was auctioned off to other bidder This created a new class of absentee landlords who lived in the cities and extracted revenue from the lands without actually living on the lands. In the traditional agricultural setup, the villages produced largely for their consumption among themselves. After the new land settlements, agricultural produce was predominantly for the market. The commodification of land and commercialization of agriculture did not improve the lives and conditions of the peasants. Instead, this created discontent among the peasantry and made them resistive. These peasants later on turned against the imperialists and their collaborators. Peasants na farmers வேற ஒன்றும் இல்லை. அண்ட் வேறு ஏதாவது வேர்டு உங்களுக்கு ஏதாச்சும் வேர்ட் புரியலன்னா அது நீங்கள் கீழே கமெண்ட் பண்ணுங்கள், நான் உங்களுக்கு வந்து அதுக்கு ஆன்சர் சொல்கிறேன். Laissez-faire policy and deindustrialization impact on Indian artisans. The policy of the company in the wake of industrial revolution in England resulted in the deindustrialization of India. This continued until the beginning of the World War I. The British government pursued a policy of free trade or laissez-faire. Raw materials like cotton, jute, silk and silks from India were taken to Britain. The finished products made from those raw materials were then transported back to Indian markets. Mass production with the help of technological advancement enabled them to flood the Indian market with their goods. It was available at the comparatively cheaper price than the Indian handloom cloth. Prior to the arrival of the British, India was known for its handloom product and handicrafts. It commanded a good world market. However, as a result of the colonial policy, gradually Indian handloom products and handicrafts lost their market. Domestic as well as international. Import of English articles into India through the weavers, the cotton dressers, the carpenters, the blacksmiths and the shoemakers out of employment. India became a procurement area for the raw material and the farmers were forced to produce industrial crops like indigo and other cash crops like cotton for use in British factories. Due to this shift, subsistence agriculture, which was the mainstay for several hundred years, suffered, leading to food scarcity. ஸோ இண்டிகோ ரெவல்யூஷனோட பிக்சர்ஸ் வந்து இங்கே பிக்டோரியலாக ரெப்ரசன்ட் பண்ணியிருக்காங்க. என்னென்னா பிரிட்டிஷில் வந்து இண்டஸ்ட்ரியல் ரெவல்யூஷன் நடந்துகிட்ருக்கு. ஸோ அதுக்காக வந்து அதுக்கான பொருள் எல்லாம் வந்து இந்தியாவிலேருந்து கொண்டு போயிட்டு அங்கே ப்ராசஸ் பண்ணி மறுபடியும் இந்தியாவுக்கே கொண்டு வராங்க. இதனால் வந்து என்ன பண்ணுறாங்கன்னா இவங்க அதுக்கான பொருட்களை மட்டும் விளைவிச்சிட்டே இருக்காங்க. ஃபுட் ப்ராடக்ட்ஸ் வந்து விளைவிக்கல. அதனால நிறைய ஃபெமைன்ஸ் வந்துச்சு இந்தியாவில். The Indigo Revolt of 1859 to 60 was one of the responses from the Indian farmer to the oppressive policy of the British. Indian tenants were forced to grow indigo by their planters who were மோஸ்ட்லி யூரோப்பியன்ஸ். இண்டிகோங்கிறது ஒரு டையிங் பிளான்ட். ஸோ ட்ரெஸ்க்கெலாம் டை போடுவாங்கள்ல, கலர் பண்ணுவாங்கள்ல, ஸோ அதுக்காக இந்த இண்டிகோ பிளான்ட்டை வந்து வளர்ப்பாங்க. Used to dye the cloths, indigo was in high demand in Europe. Peasants were forced to accept meager amounts as advance and enter into unfair contracts. Once a peasant accepted the contract, he had no option but to grow indigo on his land. The price paid by the planter was far lower than the market price. Many a times the peasant could not even pay their land revenue dues. Hoping that the authorities would address their concerns, the peasants wrote several petitions to authorities and organized peaceful protest. As their plea for reform went in vain, they revolted by refusing to accept any further advances and enter into new contracts. Peasants, through the Indigo Revolt of 1859 to 60, were able to force the planters to withdraw from northern Bengal. C. Famines and emigration of Indians to overseas British colonies. Famines na panjam. As India became increasingly deindustrialized and weavers and artisans engaged in handicrafts were thrown out of employment, there were recurrent famines due to the neglect of irrigation and oppressive taxation on land. Therefore, before the arrival of British, Indian rulers had uh, ameliorate, ameliorate, ameliorated the difficulties of the populace in times of famines by providing tax relief, regulating the grain prices, and banning food exports from famine hit areas. But the British extended their policy of non intervention, laissez faire, even to famines. As a result, millions of people died of starvation during the Raj. It has been estimated that between 1770 and 1900, 25 million Indians died in famines. William Digby, the editor of Madras Times, pointed out that during 1793 to 1900 alone, an estimated 5 million people had died in the wars around the world, whereas in just 10 years, 1891 to 1900, 19 million had died in India in famines alone. Sadly, when people were dying of starvation, millions of tons of wheat was exported to Britain during the 1866 Odisha famine. For instance, while 1.5 million people starved to death, the British exported 200 million pounds of rice to Britain. The Orissa famine prompted nationalist Dadabhai Nauroji to begin his lifelong investigation into Indian poverty. The failure of two excessive monsoons caused a severe famine in the Madras Presidency during 1876 to 78. The Viceroy Lytton adopted a hands-off approach similar to that followed in Orissa. An estimated 3.5 million people died in the Madras Presidency. இன்டென்ச்சர்ட் லேபர்னா கொத்தடிமைகள், அதாவது அவங்களுக்கு வந்து பணம்லாம் கொடுக்க மாட்டாங்க, சம்பளம்லாம் தர மாட்டாங்க, அவங்களுக்கு வந்து சாப்பாடு மட்டும் போடுவாங்க, ஆனால் அவங்க வேலை செஞ்சுக்கிட்டே இருக்கணும். The introduction of plantation crops such as coffee, tea, and sugar in empire colonies such as Ceylon, Sri Lanka, Mauritius, Fiji, Malaya, and Caribbean islands, the South Africa required enormous labor. In 1815, the governor of Madras received a communication from the governor of Ceylon asking for coolies to work on the coffee plantains. The Madras governor forwarded this letter to the collector of Tanjavur, who reported that the people were very much attached to the soil and unless some incentive was provided, it was not easy to make them move out of their native soil. But the outbreak of two famines, 1833 and 1843, forced the people, without any prompting from the government, to leave for Ceylon to work as coolies in coffee and tea plantation under the indentured labor system. The abolition of slavery in British India in 1843 also facilitated the process of emigration to empire colonies. In 1837, the number of immigrant Tamil laborers employed in Ceylon coffee estate was estimated at 10,000. The industry developed rapidly and so did the demand for Tamil labor. In 1846, its presence was estimated at 80,000 and in 1855 at 1,28,000 persons. In 1877, the famine year, there were nearly 3,80,000 Tamil laborers in Ceylon. Besides Ceylon, many Indians opted to emigrate as indentured labor to other British colonies such as Mauritius, Straits Settlements, Caribbean Islands, Trinidad, Fiji, and South Africa. In 1843, it was officially reported that 30,218 male and 4,307 females had entered Mauritius as indentured laborers. By the end of the century, some 5 lakh laborers had moved from India to Mauritius. Indentured labor. Under this penal contract system indenture, laborers were hired for a period of 5 years and they could return to their homeland with passage paid at the end. Many impoverished peasants and weavers went hoping to earn some money. It turned out to be as worse than slave labor. The colonial state allowed agents, Kanganis, to trick or kidnap indentured landless laborers. The laborers suffered terribly on their long sea voyages and many died on the way. The percentage of death of indentured labor during 1856 to 57 in the ship bound for Trinidad from Kolkata is as follows: 12.3% of all males, 18.5% of all females, 28% of boys, 36% of the girls, and 55% of the infants perished. ஸோ நெக்ஸ்ட் சாப்டர் நம்ம அடுத்த வீடியோவில் பார்க்கலாம். தேங்க்யூ ஃபார் வாட்சிங். ஸோ உங்களுடைய கமெண்ட்ஸை வந்து லீவ் பண்ணுங்கள். அண்ட் வேறு ஏதாச்சும் உங்களுக்கு இம்ப்ரூவ்மெண்ட் வேணும் அப்படின்னா அதையும் கமெண்ட் செக்ஷனில் லீவ் பண்ணுங்கள். தேங்க்யூ ஃபார் வாட்சிங்.